Welcome to the 10th and final installment of Theory Chats, an interactive companion to the 2024 book, The Theory Story Reader for Social Studies, published with Teachers College Press. We hope this abbreviated conversation will pique people's interest about how the book approaches stories and applies theory to social studies education. If it happens to do so, the volume is available at all major online retailers or by going directly to tcpress.com and searching for the title. Aaron and I are always more than happy to answer any questions related to the book or the project, so please reach out. We'd love to hear from you. Today's guest is the wonderful Dr. Becky Christ, who will be talking about haeccity, which is highlighted in her chapter.
Thank you for joining us today. Would you mind introducing yourself and then start by telling us a little bit about how you arrive at or depart from theory in research and teaching?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for inviting me to be here today. I'm really excited to be here. And the final installment, that's a lot of pressure. So hopefully I do it justice here. But really grateful to be here. And yeah, so I'm Becky Christ. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Teaching and Learning at Florida International University. And I'm kind of going between two main fields in my research and teaching. I really focus in social studies education, mostly on genocide education. And then also I do a lot in qualitative inquiry, in the field of qualitative inquiry, and I teach a lot of qualitative courses. And then of course, at the intersection of those like fields and disciplines, which is really exciting for me because that really gets at the heart of the theory and practice, which is at the heart of these conversations that you all are having. And for me, theory is integral to research and teaching because if the way that we think and what we know, or at least think that we know, influences how we live and what we do in the world, then it already always is implicated in our teaching and in our research. And so those for me are co-constitutive. They go together. You cannot separate teaching from research, and theory is at the heart of that connection.
Yeah, I appreciate that so much. The co-constitutiveness piece, I think, is going to be a very valuable thing to think about for our listeners today. So thank you. Okay, so why haeccity?
Yeah, great question. Honestly, it's one of the first theoretical concepts that I read about that I had no clue what it was at all. And it took me forever to kind of wrap my brain around it. I'm still wrapping my brain around it. Like that's one of the beautiful things about this concept is that it's knowable and unknowable at the same time. And like to paraphrase Daniel Smith, who was a Deleuzian scholar, like if thinking is what kind of knocks us out of our natural stupor, it's the thing that gets us going. It kind of knocks some sense and maybe nonsense into us. Then this is the concept that first really did that to me. I talk about it briefly in the chapter, but I was in a class on learning about post-structural theories in particular, but other connected post-foundational theories. And we were reading Elizabeth St. Pierre's chapter on post-qualitative inquiry. And she uses this concept. And since then, I've read a lot from her as well. She talks a lot about it in her work, arriving at this concept and other Deleuzian concepts in particular. But I'm reading it and I'm thinking, like, first of all, what the heck is this word? I don't even know how to pronounce it. We had like a nice little conversation about how do you pronounce this word? I'm not even 100% sure that I pronounce it correctly. But I think that that's, again, part of the beauty of it. And she was really talking about how this concept undoes research, but it also like undoes the humanist concept of a human being. And for me, as someone who was looking at the time into genocide education, that really stopped me in my tracks. Like, what does this mean, not only for research and how we engage with participants and analysis and data and writing, but then how does this change how I perceive humanity? And then is that okay? And like that's like a really kind of ethical question to think about, is how are we seeing who human beings are and who they can be. And it took me a little while to work through that. Maybe I'm still working through that, but I think that it's allowed me to think differently about the whole enterprise of research, but also of our connections to ourselves as humans and to each other as humans and others as more than humans.
Wonderful, thank you. So as the book is inspired around Deleuze's suggestion of being on the lookout, what are some ways that theory reveals itself in your life outside of the classroom or in spaces where you conduct research?
Yeah, I love that question because like I kind of started this chat, if research and teaching are co-constituted, but they're already connected, and if what we know and how we think influences who we are and can become and how we live in the world, then like everything is connected to theory, and the theory is alive in our world, and our lives are in theory, and so it makes us think through, for at least for me, right, and especially connected to the concept of haeccity. And this is where I kind of reconciled the concept with my research, is if we are not stable individuals, then that opens up possibilities for relation to others, other humans and more than humans, space, time, material, other matter. And it makes every relationship important and matter. And so when we go on the lookout for theory, then that means that everything we do can make an impact in the world, and that the ripple effects can continue throughout all of time and space. And I think that that's really beautiful. And so, it allows us to put that theory into action.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for that beautiful response. And thank you again for your wonderful contribution to the project and for being so generous with your time. We hope viewers and listeners today enjoyed this season of Theory Chats, and will seek out the book in order to think more about haeccity and the undoing and destabilizing of how we think about research, humanity, ethics, and more than human relationality that you spoke about, Dr. Christ. Thank you. We strongly encourage everyone to be on the lookout for Becky's scholarship, which appears in numerous journals, chapters, and books, including Speculative Pedagogies of Qualitative Inquiry and the co-edited volume Towards a Stranger and More Posthuman Social Studies.
We'll chat again.
Take care. Thank you.